And if I go here, it shows I'm live. So hello, if you guys can see me. Also, just quickly want to have a look on actual YouTube and see if I'm live, and maybe put on some music because I don't have any music on at the moment. So that should be good. Some nice relaxing vaporwave. And let's jump onto the studio. Just have a look here. I need to update this title. EVNG live stream figuring out more MikroTik and Juniper. There we go. Cool. So we actually have a nice title instead of just saying my stream, because that's a bit, I guess, weird almost. How can I see the chat and stuff like that? I'm not really seeing like the chat stuff, which is kind of weird. Hey Zach. Alright, at least I can see the chat from OBS. I just can't see it from my studio on YouTube, which, you know, it's not too bad. It doesn't really bother me that much. Alright, as long as you guys can actually see me and hear me, then that's really all that matters at the end of the day. So let me just tune the volume a little bit, and then we can start. I can actually lab around a bit, because I think I titled this, or actually made the description, that I want to figure out layer 3 VPNs again. Hey, can you do a full setup, PPPoE setup, or I should say triple PoE, without too many things? Maybe, but for now I just want to do a little bit of a continuation of what we did in the previous lab. I'm not going to install updates now, so let's just jump in. There's a few things that I actually want to get through in the lab anyways. Hey, family plans. So let's have a look. If I jump onto Eve, because besides continuing the old lab, there's also some Juniper stuff that I want to figure out, and I just quickly want to show you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. But it's kind of a similar setup to what I was doing with the MikroTik network as well, except instead of MikroTik at the core, it's using Juniper. And we've got a route reflector, we've got layer 3 VPNs, and it works fine, straight out of the box. That's what I love. It's so cool that it just like pops up, works, goes. I'm even using RSVP as opposed to LDP as a signaling protocol for the MPLS, so that's also quite nice. But the issue that I have in this topology is the routes that get reflected back to the provider edge devices, which is basically these devices at the edges. They have a autonomous system path, which is like a really weird ASN number, which I don't expect seeing. So I'm not sure if that's normal. Like, that's something that I want to figure out as well while we're labbing. So don't be surprised if you guys see me switch to this lab. The only issue I have with it is when I turn these devices on, they take like 5 minutes to actually boot up. So we'll probably just do some research while they're booting up. So that's why I want to jump into the MikroTik lab, because at least with the MikroTiks, they're nice, quick and easy. So let's just get in here. And I know with the last iteration of the lab, when we ended it off, things were a bit weird because I configured everything and I was expecting stuff to work, because I've done the setup like so many times already, and it didn't work the way I was expecting it to, which kind of sucked. So I need to see why that is, because after the stream I spent like 30 minutes just looking at the topology, did some tests, and I could see that routes were actually being learned and the traffic was entering between the provider edge devices. It just, for some reason, I had to fix it with mangle rules, which isn't normal. It's not something that I typically do to get it working. I think that's a bit strange. So there must be something still wrong with the setup. But who knows, maybe I boot these devices up and they just start working now. without the mangle rules. But I even have it in my head to maybe just very quickly grab the configs on each of the devices, and I'm just going to wipe them and re-add the configs from scratch just to sanitize it, because I know last time when we were troubleshooting I actually forgot to turn on LDP on this provider edge 4, and that caused a big bulk of the issues that we were having. Alright, so let's see how quickly these devices have booted up. Am I zoomed in? Because this looks a bit weird. Alright, doesn't matter too much. So what I could do is just quickly head on to Winbox. Although I could access everything from the command line and just do it. Hey, welcome. Happy to see you. Alright, so let's jump on to Ramon. And I just want to start off with these provider edges. So provider edge 2, provider edge 4, because these are the devices where we had the essentially the MPLS configured on to, let's say, advertise the VRF, so to speak. So from PE2, if I can find it, there we go. Jump on there, and I might just open up another Winbox session to PE4. And I see I still have these mangle rules in place, so I actually want to disable them quickly and just do a quick test and see what the impact is. Do I have the mangles? Yeah, I do. All right. So I'm just going to turn them off, because then I can also kind of show you guys what I figured out last time as well. Unless it just works fine now, then that is just how it is, I suppose. Get onto the other device, zoom in a bit. IP firewall, mangles, turn off. Alright, cool. Let's just have a quick look. I think the provider, the customer edges should be up and running as well. Admin. Alright, cool. IP address print. Just see, very basic. Can I ping out 164? I think 0.9 is the gateway, and then we've got something like hey Scott, and then I think .1, so 164.1 if I remember correctly. Yeah, 164.1.9 would be PE4's Ether2 address, so this on the edge here. So in theory, I should be able to ping that over the VRF as well. So let's just try 1.9. And now it works. But I think actually, when we ended the lab off, I could actually, because of the LDP stuff, I could get the WAN IPs to communicate, if I remember correctly. It was the actual subnets or the prefixes between the customer ranges that wasn't working. So let's test that. So I think the prefix was 192.168. Why do you always talk so fast? Because I guess my brain is a little bit loose. I don't know, maybe I've got a little bit of ADHD in the head or something. You missed quite a bit. There's a fair bit, but don't worry. It's guys, again, this is just me labbing. Me just doing, this is not like a teaching session. This is not a video brainstorming idea or something. This is just you guys getting to see me being what I do, even when the camera's off, when I'm labbing, just figuring things out. This is what these sessions are about, actually. It's just so that we stay kind of in touch, so that you guys don't think I'm abandoning YouTube or something. 192, what was the subnet? I don't really remember now. 192.168.20. Alright, that should be it. So let's see from the CE1, can I ping 192.168.20.1? No, that times out. Can I ping? No, it doesn't mean I'm smart. I also don't think I'm smart if I talk fast. So it's just how it is, I guess. Let's just source the traffic from 192.168.10.1. and that still times out. So this is what I can show you guys now. So if I jump onto the provider edge, actually let's get onto the CE2 quickly, and I'm going to run the same type of ping to CE1, and then we're going to grab our good friend a packet capture and just see exactly what's happening. So admin TMB. So I ping 192.168.10.1 from 192.168.20.1. In essence, I'm just initiating some ICMP from the CE2's LAN IP to the CE1's LAN IP. So this is just like the internal subnets, because obviously the customers want their LANs to be able to communicate. Now what's interesting is if I jump onto PE2 and I grab a packet capture on Ether1, because I'm fairly confident the traffic will come in on Ether1, we should in theory see that ICMP traffic. So let's have a look-see. And there I can see ICMPs hitting this device. So the routing is in effect there. It is definitely getting from PE4 to PE2. So routes are definitely also be redistributing. I can see the hellos. Let's just quickly stop this. So with that information in hand, I know it's reaching this device. And here we also see, hey, no response found, which is weird. And here I think I also set the explicit null. We shouldn't have to do that. It's just another thing that I was testing with. And if you're not familiar, are you learning the IP neighbor address? Yeah, no, I'm learning all the neighbor addresses. Are you speaking from the customer edge side? Let's just go back to the topology. So from the CE to the provider edges, or are you talking about like the provider edges to like the provider devices in general? One thing I want to check quickly is on provider edge 2. If I go just into the terminal quickly, and then we can do something like a route print. Because this is pretty cool. This is like a separate routing table, if you're not aware. And this kind of keeps track of your VP and V4 routes and such. And this is where it looks a bit weird. No, not in this instance, black HTD. But I do have another topology that looks exactly the same that runs IS as well. But just looking at these routes, this looks very interesting to me, that the active routes these routes, because 192.168.20.0/24, it is a VPN v4 route, which is right, but it doesn't show the customer one VRF. Basic beginner setup of MikroTik VLANs for home network. Sure, Russ, we can definitely tackle that as well. I think for most beginner stuff, I actually recommend just having a look at some of the some of the other channels. I mean, even my channel has a couple of videos for VLANs in general, but if you look at Surviving Networking and IT, their channel specifically, they've got some great videos on VLANs. Sorry guys, I'm just going to switch there. I just want to show what I'm talking about. So youtube.com. And my microphone is like shifting down a lot on its own. I need to fix this arm. I might actually just mute the mic quickly so you guys don't hear me like screeching while I fix the arm. That didn't really fix it that much, but that's fine. As long as you guys don't hear me clicky clacky because it's too close to the keyboard, because it's like gradually going down. I actually have like a Allen key to tighten it, but I don't know where I put it now. So what I'm talking about specifically is if you look surviving, networking, and IT, I think this is how you put the channel. There it is. So this channel, just go to their videos, and there's some really just good videos on basic setups for VLAN specifically, and it's using stuff like GNS3 as well. So if you want to follow along, it's pretty neat for that. So I could recommend this if you just want to get a basic grasp of what's happening with VLANs. Solid point to start. All right, let's get back to the topology. So what is freaking me out at the moment is this, that it's not telling the router that this belongs to the customer 1 VRF. And that kind of explains why the Mangle rules are also fixing the issue. Hey, Mining King. So in theory, what's happening is when we add these Mangle rules, we're in essence forcing traffic into the correct routing table. So that's why I can just enable here. I'm just going to enable because you can see these are pre-routing changes. It's basically just saying anything between these subnets, mark the routing and then pump it into the correct VRF. And now if we run the same test, like there you can see it's already working, which is not something you typically need to do. So I need to figure out why those routes are deciding that they are not being marked for the customer 1 VRF. Yeah, we can definitely look at the Junos as well. I think I really just want to figure this out, and then I'll have a look at the Junos topology as well. So to me, this feels like something with the redistribution of the routes when it's going to the route reflector. But didn't we previously also test by bypassing the route reflector? I almost remember doing that. I'm kind of curious to just do that again. So I'm going to. And this is how easy it is to just do these things on the fly, even though you really shouldn't. So I'm just going to make my remote address here .10. I'm going to change this to an IBGP client. And just going to apply. I'm not going to change the name because I already know what this is, and I'm probably just going to revert the change back. I just want to have a look at what this does to the routes when we change it in this way. So remote address is going to be .5, no, is it 6 or it's 8. Oh, and I'm on the wrong thing. Almost broke my BGP to my custom edge there. So our remote address is .8. I'm just going to keep this for IBGP. All right. So let's just have a quick look. Cluster ID. So cluster ID is basically the way that I've seen it being used, Nicola, is if you have like multiple route reflectors, so that kind of like decide which route reflector to prefer the routes from. I'll see if we can showcase that a bit better as well. But that's typically what I've seen cluster ID be used for. Yeah, it's true. So, you know, sometimes these labs are shallow, or sometimes they're just too deep as well. All right, let's get back to the topology. Let's just see what the routes are doing now. Or let's actually see as our BGP session come up. It has, which is good. But that's the same session. So let me just bring this up and down. And that looks better. So curiously, let's do a route print. And there I see I do receive a copied route. Sorry, the thing's doing it again. Just gonna quickly mute again. It's not really a secret. Like, this is a Rode. It's like an AN1 or something. It's a decent microphone. The issue right now is I'm using like this very cheap microphone arm thing that you can attach to your desk, and it's just not really handling the weight that well for the microphone. It did it fine the last few streams, and now it's like freaking out. Yeah, the NT1, that's it. So what I think I might do, although this is going to cut the microphone for a second, is I might just, so I've got this nice thick, strong arm, but it kind of puts the microphone in an awkward position as well. So if you guys don't mind, just like waiting a second while I just put this on the right stand so it doesn't like sag the whole time, because right now you guys didn't hear any of that, by the way. So I was just talking to myself. So I was just thinking about moving the microphone to this other thing, but it's fine. No, it's still sagging. Okay, I'm just quickly going to move it, to be honest. This is actually like freaking me out now. I need a better arm. I don't know why. I thought I'm gonna get this cheap thing and just be fine, but it's not worth it. It's better to just shell out the little bit of extra money and get something proper, to be honest. Alright, I'm just gonna mute again for a second, so sorry about this. Alrighty, that should be a bit better. Although the positioning is always a bit weird. That's kind of why I like the arm, because you can kind of get it up nicely. But I'm not gonna deal with this like thing sagging down the whole time. Let me just quickly have a read here. Out of curiosity, do you do any freelance work? No, unfortunately not. I don't do any freelance work. If you're looking for a consultant specifically with MikroTik, there are a few of my peers I could recommend, but Unfortunately, I'm kind of prohibited from consultation, so don't, unfortunately, but I can definitely help you find some people. All right, so routes still get redistributed out without being placed in the correct VRF. That is very interesting. Although if I do look in the customer VRF, I can see a copied route there for it. Zero-tier nodes talk to each other without draining too much bandwidth. That's pretty cool. I also don't like this additional copied route, which is my own route. Like, this is also weird. This shouldn't be happening. Yeah, I've seen a lot of botnet stuff happening lately, to be honest. It's a crazy world. Like, I can kind of see why people need some type of DDoS just to mitigate as much as they can. So I actually want to have a look at the MikroTik docs again. help.mikrotik.com/docs. And let's just have a quick look-see. Routing. I'll probably look at the BGP and the VRF stuff. Alright, that's fine. That is dynamically into the fib, but that's kind of what we're doing. So that's nothing fancy or special. All I'm talking about there is if I look at my routing and tables, there is a customer one entry for the fib, which is also dynamically created. So that's fine. This is fine. IPVRF. What's the stream about? What are you looking into? I'm trying to figure out from a previous stream, we were having some issues where customer edge devices, their prefix, like their LAN prefixes couldn't get to each other. And I'm kind of just busy investigating that. John, thanks for videos. It motivated me to learn and love MikroTik and also solidify my networking concepts. Still learning MPLS. That's awesome. Don't worry, I'm also still learning MPLS. I think that's kind of the thing with networking. It's also just you're always going to be learning, always. Yeah, you did say that. You did say that about the loopbacks. What is the connections with Junipers? Yeah, so I'm doing this with MikroTik. The point is dash. I've got a separate lab running in the background as well with Juniper that I'm going to start up hopefully as soon as I figure out what's happening with these routes for this customer VRF. Let me just show the lab quickly just by bouncing onto it, but I did explain it at the start of the stream. But it's this lab, so I'll bring up this topology as well, because there's something that I want to figure out with the AS path with the Junipers, which didn't look right to me. But for now, we're doing the MikroTik side just to figure out why the customer LAN ranges can't get to each other. And it's interesting because response is nope, it's an integral component. It could neither be hidden nor disabled. That's interesting. I'm sure it can be hidden. They hid it for like, they had it hidden before. Just saying it loopbacks always existed, but they had it hidden. So that's not totally true. I'm guessing they just mean they can't like set it for a customer to hide it on Winbox probably. All right, so let's just have a look at our routing print again, because I already know what the issue is and I know how to fix it with a bit of a bypass using Mangle rules. But it's not optimal. It's not how it should be working. Because it's so interesting. If I run that ping, it's still running. Continuous ping is running. And again, if I grab a packet capture on this Ether1 interface, it's cool that we can see the traffic comes into the device, but it doesn't know what to do with the return traffic. So let me just pause it. ICMP request. So here we can see it's coming from 192.168.20.1, its destination 192.168.10.1. It's sending the request, but it's not getting the reply back. But I think that a good question as well is to ask, is the interface that's going to the customer actually even getting the packet? Is it painful to get Junos instances for EVNG? Yes, it's very painful. I actually, last year, I wanted to get some Junos images and I struggled really hard because you can't just request a trial license, and Juniper is actually getting rid of their VMXs. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that. It's not a product that they really want to support anymore or do anything anymore with. So I really couldn't find anything. It went so far as me having to, I messaged Rami, who's Juniper's CEO, on LinkedIn, but not directly, obviously. It's like he posts some stuff on LinkedIn, hooray AI and all that stuff. And I just made a post, hey, I'm trying to learn your stuff and I can't because I can't get images. This is impossible. And if you go onto their website, there's nowhere to actually like speak to a human, and the bot doesn't really help you. It was difficult, but at the end of the day, one of the they call them Juniper ambassadors, which is basically just really active community members in the landscape, I guess you could say. And he just like uploaded it on Google Drive, and then we downloaded it from him. And with Juniper, their trial license, the license is generic. It's all the same, so it doesn't matter what Juniper you have. You just grab the license key and pop it up. Although I do think it might be version specific though, just something to take note of. But I've got like some 18 instance, which I'll see if I can also share it. I just first want to make sure I'm allowed to share it as well, but I understand how difficult it is to actually lab Juniper. So this Ether2 interface is actually what I want to run a packet capture against now, just to see if we're actually receiving the packets, or if this PE2 just has it and it doesn't know what to do with it afterwards, and then it's just like not caring. Yeah, we're not seeing any of that ICMP. We're not seeing any of that ICMP going to the customer edge. So that's definitely what's happening. Olive and Firefly images are no longer. Yeah, I don't think I've seen Olive used, or I used Olive a long time ago, but no. The new in thing with Juniper that they actually advise people to get is the Juniper evolved images. And you can actually download that without being a partner or anything. You can go to the Juniper firmware or download images, search the Junos Evo stuff, and you can just download that. That's pretty cool. You can also download the virtual switches, which is basically like an MX with a lot more ports. And same principle, but they are so resource hungry. I can see somebody's mentioning in chat, like you need 32 gig of RAM to run them. What I see is with the VMX images, I need at least 6 gig per node. And if I'm using the Evo stuff, it's 8 gig per node. And I mean, you can see how much this scales. These MikroTiks, you can run each of these nodes with 256 meg of RAM. But I've got like a gig for each of them. So that is kind of crazy. So scaling becomes a bit of an issue if you want to like lab bigger topologies. That's why my Juniper topology looks so small, because I think I can probably run 5, maybe 6 devices on my current hardware. I'd probably need to just get some more RAM if I want to run any bigger topologies with Juniper. All right, so we know our issue right now is our provider edges receives traffic. It can see it, but it doesn't know what to do with the traffic after it receives it. So it's not even sending it to our customer edge to do the response. So the CE1 and CE2 doesn't even do an ICMP response. It just doesn't even know that anything's trying to get to it. And it also kind of explains why the Mangle rule fixes that, because traffic hits the PEs, and then I'm able to force it with the Mangle rule to say, hey, if you have this traffic, just do a lookup in this routing table. So we're back to kind of square one, where I'm just reading through the documentation, trying to figure out what we can do to fix this. Traffic leaking. We're not really traffic leaking. Okay, but that's fine, but this is normal. This is very normal to see this type of traffic leaking. VRF interfaces and firewalls. So this is where somebody mentioned you've got this new VRF interface that you can reference with your firewall. VPL is interesting. Oh, Dash, yeah. Now, Juniper has their own online labs, and you can schedule time to do some of the labs and stuff. It's also fun. Like, the Juniper labs is pretty good. Only thing I don't really like about the Juniper training experience is it can get quite costly. Look, you can do it for free. The open learning, everything's totally free, works great. That's what I'm using. But if you want to go for like the recommended stuff, like it's almost like $1,000 per package. If your company is shelling that out for you, that's great. But if you're paying it yourself, then it's not so nice then. What I do like is the discount code you get if you pass the mock exam. That's quite nice. I appreciate that at least. That's quite nice. VRF light setup, IP address, blah 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 blah. It might be necessary to ensure packets coming in the public interface can actually reach the correct VRF. This can be solved by marking new connection originating by the VRF customers and steering traffic by routing incoming packets on public interface. New. So here's a very simple MPLS setup, which is kind of like what we're using as well. We're not using the bridge, we're using the loopback interface. Yeah, now Juniper has a metric load of information, hands down. That's kind of why I also like doing the Juniper course, because there's so much to get stuck into. But I hear you. There's really a lot of information. MPLS LDP, that's fine. Okay. This doesn't look any different to what we're using with the lab, the configuration. But here is my issue. IP routes in the customer one route table. One thing I want to do quickly is just also disable the BGP redistribute. Let's go into our... I'm trying to remember where I did this from now. It was in our routing BGP VPN. Just going to disable the distribute or redistribute BGP. Yeah, you could, but it doesn't just work that way. So if I go into Eve, obviously I could stop a node and you could edit it, and then you can just swap the node out for like a Cisco or something, but it doesn't really work. It doesn't really work. So what I would do is just build the same lab over and bring in this. Yeah. So Nicola, the reason why it's iBGP at the moment is because I've set the two PEs to form a BGP session directly. So they're not even using the route reflector right now. They're just sending BGP information to each other directly. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So at some point I could do this with Cisco as well. So I could potentially also just do the same set on Cisco. There are some nice like Linux-based Cisco images for Eve. Very lightweight, very easy to install and get your hands on as well. So we could build the same stuff with Cisco. I mean, a lot of people do. I just want to go into our VPN settings, disable the BGP redistribution. And let's just have a look at our routes. Customer 1. All right. Just want to test something quickly from the CE1. All right, so I could still ping, or at least get to the provider edge for Ether2's IP. So that traffic it knows what to do with properly. Let me just quickly add static routes, even though we've got BGP running between the CEs and the provider edges. I just want to test what it's doing with a static route when I pop that through. If you add a classic loop, don't use the added one. What, like a bridge loop back? We can do that. I mean, that's also definitely a bit of a difference. So we can do that quickly. Can I make it allo 0? Okay, yeah, we can. I'm just going to move that to the allo 0. Apply that. Definitely something to taste. I mean, yeah, because I saw Olga didn't use the loop back interface either. I just need to make sure that in the OSPF I'm also specifying the LO0 as an interface. And also just want to make sure the LO0, it's not making it passive. We should probably not do that either. So let me just throw that out, you know. Yeah. All right, let's just go into the templates, add the allo0 to the backbone. It can be PTP, but it's really not doing anything. I'm just setting this to passive. Reason being is I want this to passively just advertise its route out without trying to send hellos and stuff like that. But I think it really doesn't matter that much. Bridge allo0. Ooh, that one's a cap. allo0. Just pop you to the allo0. The thing is, but the rest of the MPLS lab is also still using the loopback interfaces, but it's fine. Routing OSPF interface. Oh, Winbox just spazzed out from whatever I did there. That was P4. So routing, OSPF, interface, add a new one for LO0. It's in my backbone. Set it for passive, apply. And let's just quickly see, can I get to, what was it, 172.29.254.7? No. Show what you see. I just need to do IP route print. Oh, it's 255, all right. Too many labs, 255.7. All right, so that's fine, so we can get there. So with our BGP, I've got an iBGP session. I'm doing L4 VPN, which is fine. I'm also just going to turn off the explicit null in the MPLS settings. And all that does is, if you turn on the use explicit null, all it does is it basically makes it so that this router pops MPLS labels, so that it isn't done by the penultimate router. And in basic terms, that would mean that this provider 2 or provider 3 or maybe the other PEs on the edges, they won't pop labels. Like they'll still have that label information sent down to the bottom PE, which is useful for stuff like QoS, but with MikroTik it doesn't really help that much. We're looking at the BGP. I just want to make sure these settings are still correct. I might just export it. So routing BGP export. Max that a bit. So we've got the routing BGP VPN. We're exporting our connected and static. We've got a route target of 300:1. We're importing 301. And we've got route distinguisher of 301. Hang on a second. Did I miss the export? Oh. Hang on a second. Routing BGP VPN. Set export. 300:100. I'm not sure if I'm blind or something. Because from the config, can I verbose this export? Verbose. It's redistributing export.redistribute connected and static. Look, I can add BGP, that's fine, but I specifically don't want to do that yet. Route targets 300:100. Oh, okay. The route targets is our export target. Okay, that makes sense. And then we've got our import route targets, which is 300:. Hang on. Why does that look? I messed something up. I messed that up. That should be :1. There we go. All right, let's export that. Okay, that's fine. I'm on the same page again. So we're importing 300:1. We're exporting 301. Our label allocation is per VRF, which is fine. And we've got our RD, which is 300:1. And it is for the customer 1 VRF. That's fine. So let's just go back to this one. Do a routing BGP export. So that's fine. Connected static, same route targets, same import targets per VRF, same RD for customer 1. Okay, so this is fine. So next step that I wanted to do, I wanted to add a static route to the customer. It's a bit cheeky. I'm just going to copy the same route. And I might just give it a lower distance of 5 or something. Apply that. That way we've got the static route down to the customer, and that should be advertised into BGP. So let's jump onto PE2 and let's just go back. And then I want to have a look at the routing routes. Print this. And then 192.168.20.10/24. We're receiving this route. Next hop is set. Yeah. So the reason that's missing here is on PE2. Actually, that's a good question as well. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. So all that I'm going to do is if I add the static route for the 192.168.10.0, let's just add a static route for this as well, because that should, in theory now, just export that down to, I don't like this though. I don't like that I'm receiving my own route on BGP like this. What is this information here? Target scope, distance. Here we've got our VPN v4 routes. Let's do a test from the CEs. All right, but this works now. And I don't have the mangle rules, right? Let's just make sure I don't have the mangle rules enabled. So IP firewall mangles, they're still disabled. So I'm not forcing this into the routing table now. Although it's still, it still looks weird to me. Because if I go into PE4, for example, again, we do a routing route. We print these routes. We've got our VPN v4 routes. Does MikroTik allow using CSPF instead of static routes? Yes. MikroTik does allow for that as well. So in that event, then you'll also want to be using, like with OSPF, you can enable traffic engineering, kind of similar like what you do with Juniper. It could also be the new Allo, because the routes still look the same to me. I'm still receiving them in the same manner. I'm still, like here I see on PE4, I'm receiving the 192.168.10.0/24. And it doesn't show it's at customer 1 or anything like that, but I could get there. Let's just see from the CE2. I think the CE2, no, CE2 wasn't pinging anymore, but it should be able to ping. It is pinging. And if I do a traffic capture now against Ether2 on PE2, we should have, well, obviously we'll see the ICMP traffic actually getting to the CE. But that means we've got full path traffic now. It's going to be interesting. Let's just change this back to the route reflector as well. So connection RR1, pop that as .5 for both devices. Routing BGP RR1. You are going to .5. Disable, enable. Dynamic loop. First thing I just want to see is our RR up, RR is up. Does our ping still work? Ping still works. So with the route reflector in the mix, we've still got full round trip traffic. Still learning the routes in a similar manner, which is good. Like the biggest change right now is that I'm just advertising the static routes as well. As with, the loopback addresses that we added, that's definitely another change. I'm just going to disable the static routes, and then we can enable routes. So disable the routes, and then we can I just want to see, do I receive anything? I shouldn't. No. Okay, so let's redistribute our BGP learned routes as well. I'm just wondering, what's the difference between, if I go in here, what's the difference between BGP, MPLS, VPN, and plain BGP? Right, let's just advertise our BGP routes, because that's what we did before. Although I did have the other option enabled last time as well. It just didn't do anything really. BGP, don't disable that. No, I've got like a pop-up somewhere and now it's spazzing out. Okay. All right. Okay, but now it also looks clean. This is how it should look. Hang on. How does our routing look? Looks fine. I mean, I'm still not seeing the add customer one, but I'm guessing it just works with the label now, with the route targets, route distinguisher. But does the actual traffic work? That is the question. No. Now it breaks again. So if I'm re-advertising the BGP routes into MPLS, that's when it's kind of spazzing out and not know what to do. Let me try this other option, BGP MPLS VPN. I also actually want to read about it a bit. But I've got a feeling it's not redistributing anything now. Yeah, I'm not learning those customer routes. Goal today is to make all BGP learned routes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've kind of done the one goal, which was to have the private subnets talk to each other without me using the mangle rules, because I can make it work if I use mangles, because the traffic got to the provider edges. It just didn't get to the customer edges for some reason. And now we fix that by just advertising static routes instead of BGP learned routes. Which is weird because the setup is basically exactly the same. Just get to the docs and I want to see what is it, VPN, is it BGP VPN? BGP VPN. BGP-MPLS-VPN. Okay, the simplest MPLS setup. We've got a CE, CE2, and this we've already looked at as well. Because with Olga's setup, here we can see, well, I should say MikroTik setup, but I'm fairly sure Olga did the testing behind this as well. Because Ether 1 is in that VRF. Okay, so it was added, that's fine. This is fine. There's really nothing like fancy or different between our setups. All right, here is what I'm going to do. And I just quickly want to have a look at time. Sorry, I just need to keep track of that. Okay, it's 10 o'clock now, so we still got plenty of time actually. I'm just going to stop a couple of nodes because I want to test something specifically now. And this is going to look a bit weird. So I really want to keep the route reflector in, keep the provider devices in. Because this is, we're going to do a quick rebuild of some of the lab, just to make sure everything is actually set up the way it should be. Oh, refresh. Okay, just grab these. Actually, I could just do this from the nodes. I could just go into the nodes themselves. And I can just quickly stop all of the stuff I don't need. So CE 1 and 2 I want. So stuff like the CE3, CE4. These devices can come down. Because the biggest thing for me is when we're rebuilding, I'm just quickly going to grab PE2, do an admin blank, no wait, admin 3. Do an export. I'm going to grab all this. I might not even do it like a full rebuild. It might just be the provider edges I quickly want to do. So let's just start there. Because like I said, I've done this stuff like so many times. So it's so weird seeing when it doesn't want to work. I'm not going to worry about a DHCP client. I'm not going to worry about the serial. So there's a bridge, there's a VRF, there's an OSPF instance, which is fine, area is fine. Technically, I'm also just combing through the config to see if anything looks really weird. Mangles are disabled at the moment. Static route is disabled. So our LDP looks fine. I mean, if we compare it to MikroTik's as well, it's just basically enable transport LSR, so that's fine. And I know the LDP is working or the MPLS is working. So technically, I'm not trying to import anything into different protocols, because this is straight BGP, because the customer edges run eBGP to the provider edges, and then in theory those routes should just be pushed across the network regardless. But we are using MPLS with a route reflector, so that we've got this two provider edges to just kind of span the customer's VRF, so that their endpoints, their devices, can just kind of talk to each other and they can do what they want to do. That's kind of the point of what I'm labbing right now, even though you see there's a bunch of other things that I want to test and showcase or figure out. In theory, this stuff is working, but it's with a lot of like tinkering, like ways that shouldn't be necessary. I shouldn't have to add mangle rules, or I shouldn't have to say I'm redistributing static routes. Even though if I do the static routes, it's redistributing and it works fine. But if I'm redistributing the BGP routes into the MPLS VPN, then that's when it starts getting weird. Okay, so got some filters. There's really nothing like super interesting or complex with the setup at the moment. Because if we just look at the routing BGP stuff, like this is actually the meat of what we want to figure out. So we've got a routing BGP connection that is able to do IP, IPv6, layer 2 VPN, which would include stuff like VPLS, or VPN v4, which is our VRFs. So I think static should be ticked, splicing statically assign an IP route, even if you disable RR. All right. Oh, there's one thing that I didn't change back earlier. I left it as iBGP, but I've seen that it works if you just leave it as iBGP as well, but we should fix that. So let's just go into our neighbors, go into the IXP1, and then see, can I get onto, why can't I get onto anything now? Oh, because I've turned off the provider edge 1 and 3. Okay, that was quite stupid of me. That makes sense. Let's just refresh this. I should see my neighbors come up. And this is again another neat tool with using ROMON. So quick and easy to get onto your equipment. So provider edge 2. If I look at you, I just want to fix the BGP with the route reflector and change this to an iBGP RR client. And I want to do the same on this other device. No master password. P4. BGP connection, route reflector client. Apply this. Disable, enable. Session is up. Although I might want to just do a similar thing on the route reflector itself. So routing or Winbox. Get onto RR1. So PE1, PE2. Let's bring you up. Okay, that looks good. If I do like the routing route print here. I'm learning the one customer prefix. Well, this is the WAN IP. And this is from PE4. I should really also be learning the PE2's WAN IP address here. Why is that? Can I still ping the WAN IP? Hang on, I think I was doing that from CE1. No, I can't. Okay, that's kind of expected. I'm just not sure why I'm not pushing that through now. What is that? Disable that. Okay, R1. Okay, now I see I am learning both routes. I think the ping might actually work now. Let's just test. Yeah, it works now. I'm not sure why it took so long. It should have been a lot quicker than that. But here we can definitely see, like, this is kind of like the crux of the issue as well, is I'm learning these two routes, but only them. So if I enable, well, it's a part of the issue. Let's try and redistribute the BGP learned routes again. I really don't think I need to have this BGP MPLS enabled. So PE1, PE4, we are redistributing our own BGP routes. So that's good. We are getting the route information. And if I go back to the route reflector, okay, cool. We are learning all of these prefixes, but our ping is still timing out. But I honestly think it has to do with like the packet markings. Because again, if I have a look at the routes or the route table in general, like here we can see the copied route that I'm learning, it's not using the at customer 1. So this is now on PE2 and 192.168.20.0/24. This is the PE4 subnet or network for customer 1. And that explains like why, if I enable the mangle rules, why that works. I just want to see again, because it was just working with static routes, wasn't it? So let's just go back to the static route quickly, enable that, go back to our BGP, and let me just turn off the BGP thing, re-enable static, disable the redistribute BGP. I just want to see in my route table, does it do the same thing? No, because the connected route is still the same. Well, it looks like the same. And if I ping across, it works. That is quite annoying. But there we see the routing table shows customer 1. Hang on, let me just re-enable it quickly. And disable static, because that is a quick and really easy test. So if I go to my routes, in the routing table, and I look at this customer, okay, I'm on PE4 now, so if I look at 192.168.10.0, it's also in the same routing table. So why doesn't it work? Because the routes are there. It's like the provider just doesn't know what to do with the traffic once it reaches them. And this is now again where if I go into the firewall, I can force it to work with mangle rules. Because here I can say if traffic is coming on the customer subnets, whenever it sees any of the customer traffic, just bop it into the customer VRF or the routing table. Because here it's the same config, it's literally just a firewall rule that I'm making now to just inject traffic into the right routing table. And if I do the same ping, now it works. Oh, really, really frustrating. I think I'm going to actually jump onto that Juniper lab now, because this is one weird thing, because the solution technically works. We've got end-to-end connectivity between the customer edges, but in my head it's not right that I need to enable the firewall rules to inject this into the right table. And you guys saw I can make it work if I redistribute stuff like static routes between the provider edges, because then I don't even need the mangle rule, then it just works. But if I do it with BGP, something's wrong. So something's wrong with either the setup or there's a bug, but I'm going to lean more with something's probably wrong with my setup. So this might be a case of sanitizing the setup again, and that I can do in the background so that you guys don't just watch me like wipe nodes and reconfigure everything from scratch. All right, so let's just quickly do a more action, turn off all these nodes, and then we can have fun with that little Juniper lab. And then you guys can see what weird issue I'm having there, and hopefully we don't get stuck there. Although we really didn't get stuck here, we've made quite a bit of progress, to be honest. So Juniper lab 1, open. And I can just quickly start all these nodes, but here you guys will see how hungry Juniper is. I'm not sure all the nodes actually turned off. Let me just make sure. Is everything off, or is it still busy trying to turn off? Because I was still connected on PE4 just now. The problem is, if it's a bug, then me sitting here for like, I could sit here as many hours as we want. I'm not gonna fix it. Like, that's the sad part. If there's some type of, if you actually need to use the firewall mangle thing, then there's nothing I can do about that then. Because for a long time, layer 3 VPNs just wouldn't work if you used a route reflector. For so long. And it was very similar type of issues. And then they fixed it. And then I made a video about it. And I haven't worked on MikroTik for so long. And now I want to just set it up again in a lab. And now it doesn't want to work again. Like, what are the odds? Alright. I should really just use this, go into more actions and start all nodes, although this might actually, it could very well be, because I'm also using beta versions at the moment. I mean, I might even just do the same lab with an older version, and then we'll see if it works. These nodes don't look like they're starting. Let me just select them all myself, start. All right, route reflector starting, MikroTiks on the edges are starting. Yeah, they are very hungry. What I find is it's fine if I turn them all on, but sometimes they, like, one or two of the nodes might break and then I need to shut it down and start it up again. It's really, really weird. But for you guys that's interested, this is like the Junos startup process. This thing takes so freaking long. it takes really long. It's really like a 5 or 10 minute boot time. So while that's booting, we're either going to have a look at some documentation, or yeah, we're going to have to do something, because logging onto this customer, it just doesn't really do anything. It's literally just some, I think these are blank MikroTiks. They might have an IP address on them. Let me admin blank. I think they just have an IP address so that I could test end-to-end connectivity. Maybe a route as well, IP route print. So we've got a static default out to the provider edge, and then it does it's basically doing the same thing as the previous lab, just with less cogs. It looks less busy as well. And it's using a MikroTik route reflector, where I probably suggest using pure Junos, but I found it to be more interesting and fun this way. Oh, and these IP addresses are wrong. Because I think with MikroTik the /31s don't work that well with some routing protocols. So I've actually statically made this, I think, /30s, and this is 10.00.12.30, and yeah, and then 16/30. Because what I was looking at is error AS path, or something like that. But it was like a long number. And even if I go back to this Juniper, you'll see this thing is still like waking up and getting ready. Yeah, we can chit chat. We can chit chat. Here is old enough to have used IRDA modem. I don't even know what that is. IRDA modem. I kind of want to Google it, but I'm going to Google it off screen just in case it's something weird, even though I trust you. But infrared data association. So no, I haven't used anything like this before. I think the closest thing that I've, although it's not anywhere close, is like the DigiNet lines or lease lines, although I don't really work on them per se, because it's not like I configured them or anything. I just monitored the things. But the DigiNet lines or serial lines, you know, these T1s and whatever, these weird things that people paid tens of thousands of dollars for, like a 1 megabit service. And it's like, it hasn't even been like 2 decades, and people are paying out of their eyes and ears for such a slow service, actually, if you compare it to modern standard. Is ADSL in England still a thing? Yes, it is still a thing, but they are getting. It's probably not going to be a thing for a very long time. I think it's mostly just has to do with the copper, you know, because it's a copper network. So why do you want to keep it around? Because there's some maintenance involved with it, and there's always people. Even though back in my home country it happened a lot more, where they used to steal stuff like that for the copper, but apparently it happens in England as well. Like people dig up copper out of the ground to, I don't know, do what with it, but ooh, that felt bad. I could definitely see something happen there. machine is lagging a little bit, but I can tell you guys why my machine's lagging a little bit, because I've got 5 Junipers running at the same time. I might actually close my music I'm streaming. Oh. Yeah, I'm gonna close the music because then we can just chat. Fiber, most providers offer fiber to the cabinet and then it's copper. Yeah, 100% right as well. They call it the FTTP. I see that name used a lot. Let's log into our Juniper. I just hope it actually logs in. It does. Very good, very nice. Here's a cool command with RSVP, if you guys know it. It is show MPLS. Actually, I'm in the wrong mode. Let's go into the CLI, and then we can do a show MPLS LSP transitors. 0 sessions are up, so the lab's probably still booting, or one of these nodes has conked out and I might have to restart it. I think I was just on P or the VCP2. Let's just check if VCP3 is up. Yes, it is. Oh no, this thing's busted. You can see it's busted. I need to start this node up again. And that's kind of some of the issues that I have when I'm labbing Juniper, because these images are so big. And look, it tends to work better if you start the nodes up sequentially. So start up a node and then wait like 20 or 30 seconds and then start up the next node. But since we're streaming, I'm just being a bit lazy, but maybe laziness has caught me because this other node is also not working that well. So let's just stop that. I've actually only got one node that's really working right now, this one. Let me see if the VCP1 is up. This one's up. Is it? Is it though? Maybe not. But this node isn't really that important. It's really just there for redundancy, so I don't really care if it's down or not. So I might just shut it down completely, to be honest, just to save some resources. And is VCP5 working? Please tell me you're working at least. Yes. All right, so 2 working, 2 dead, and well, technically 3. Junos is BSD based, and they are actually also moving to a more Linux orientated like thing in general, which is what Junos Evolved is. So yes, it is actually under the hood. It's just Linux, kind of like MikroTik as well if you think about it, just a lot more fancier. A lot more fancier. Yeah. All right, let's quickly see this VCP. I'm pretty sure it's gonna like take a moment again. So sorry about that, guys, but we can still chit chat, or I can just go around and see what else is interesting. I don't even know why I'm scrolling through this news stuff, because this is mostly spam. I should really start up like either Pi-hole or AdGuard or Blocky or something again, just to help me get rid of some ads again, because there's so many of them. Although I've seen YouTube crack down on stuff like ad blockers, I should say. And that's also one thing I don't really like about ad blockers. If I use stuff like AdGuard, people freak out because the original creators are like Russian or something. Not that it's a big issue or anything to me, it's just, you know, there's political stuff, so. But I don't want to get involved with any of the political stuff. I heard Juniper will be investing a lot in AI networking. So you didn't just hear that. That's 100% a thing. That's the whole reason why Juniper was bought over by HPE, is because of their AI tech, because they've got the stuff actually ironed out very, very well. And HP is like, okay, we want AI, so might as well just buy Juniper then. And then they got the whole package, you know, because Juniper is awesome for service providers, but I think HP is really going to try and leverage that AI, because let's face it, AI is the buzzword, right? Everybody wants AI, everybody's like wanting the best and quickest thing, and Juniper's got a real good like working solution, especially with this Marvis thing of theirs that's like able to consistently check what's happening on the network. And not just that, you've got what they call Marvis minis, and think of these as smaller bots in the network that kind of acts like hosts, and they can test stuff in real time to see if there's any issues and tell Marvis there's issues, and then Marvis fixes the issues, and it's all just automated with AI. It's so crazy to see this stuff. Like I'm actually surprised we're living in this age, because this is like the peak. We're gonna see some really cool things, or we're gonna see Skynet. I don't know. I really hope we don't see Skynet, but it's possible. There we go. Home devices, yeah, they do make a lot of their, like, I think that the 2K series EX switches are definitely like easy to get for your home networking as well. Right, P1 is up. That looks good. Show MPLS LSP. Oh, that's good. So if I do a show MPLS LSP extensive, we can see we've actually got a label switch path between our provider edge devices, which are these things on the edges. And that is kind of, it's like what LDP does, except with RSVP. You're definitely a lot more involved with defining and structuring and creating the paths. But that's also kind of the power of RSVP, is, you know, to enforce stuff like traffic engineering. But it's cool to see that we've got an LSP path that's up. But what I actually wanted to show you guys, if I just do like a show route. All right, the route hasn't actually been advertised yet, or has it? Hang on, there it is. There it is. This is what I'm talking about. So I'm advertising a customer. I think this is the customer prefix. No, this is the WAN IP 172.16.10/29. It is over BGP. That is the how long I've learned the route. We've got local prefs, you know, like standard stuff. Here's our from IP. I have set stuff like a next hop. This is, I'm not sure if this is normal, like this AS path. This doesn't look normal to me. 135.370.752. And if you Google this AS path, it's like, that's an AS path that doesn't, hang on, what do I copy paste there? Copy, paste. Feels like I'm doing that cicada challenge that 4chan had like a billion years ago. AS path. Error AS name not found. There we go. That's the thing. Yeah, MikroTik can run like forever. And what I also like is, you know, it's so cool to see when people have these super ancient pieces of gear. It's like literally like 10 or 15 years old, maybe older, and they just load router is version 7 on it, and it goes. It just works. It just that's really cool. So what is this? It's a bogon ASN. But is it normal for this ASN to be on the path? That is the question, because here we can see there is a label switch path, which is fine. And the real test is just to see if I go on to the CE1. I wonder if I can get my music back since we've turned this other device off, because the silence is quite numbing actually. IP address print. So I've got 172.16.0.0/29 on the left, and I've got 172.16.10/29 on the right. So on CE1, can I ping CE2? That is the interesting question. So let's see. Do we have end-to-end connectivity? 1.2. Cool, we do. So routes are learned successfully. It's just this AS path thing. I feel like this is not right. Or maybe it is. Because that looks like an AS path that's just been prepended like a ton. So the important nodes are online. We've got two provider edges, and obviously we've got customer edges connecting into the provider edges. We've got two provider routers, which is sitting in our core. This third router at the top, it doesn't need to be on. I turn it off to save some resources. If I turn it on, this lab is making my computer get a bit toasty. It really also just exists there for an alternate path to be formed, so that, let's say if this link between the two provider routers in the middle goes down, then there's just an alternate path for the LSP to be formed, which is quite normal to see in many networks. And then at the bottom we've just got a route reflector. So this route reflector, it doesn't do like MPLS or anything. It's just there for BGP. I can just log on to it quickly and show you as well. Admin. Do I have a password defined? I actually think it's blank as well. I just Control-C out of the password. But if we export that, here you can see I've just got OSPF. And the reason I've got OSPF is so that my loopback address is advertised to the rest of the network, so that we can, form BGP sessions to it. And here's the important bit. So we've set address families, just like we did on the pure MikroTik lab. We've got address families, we've got our AS number, very basic details actually. Although with the MikroTik topology, I could also get the WAN addresses to talk to each other. Let's maybe quickly just introduce some LAN subnets, some IPs that lives inside the customer edge as well. And this could be something like, it could be the same IPs as I tested with the MikroTik. So IP address add 192.168.10.1/24. I'll bind that to Ether2. And then 20. I'll bind to the CE2 quickly. I just want to see what that route will look like. I love it when it does that. In theory, this MikroTik is still working. This is just like a unit lab or Eve thing. To fix it, I have to stop the node and start it back up. It could also be because I started all these nodes up together and Eve kind of just couldn't handle what was happening for a second. But at least MikroTik, as you guys know, it's so quick and lightweight. It just starts up. IP address add. I already copied it, but it's fine. I'll just add it in manually. Ether2. So we've got some IP addresses here on our CEs. Let's just quickly add some routing from our Junipers down to the CEs. So I can't really see there. So I might just jump on through the command line again like so. Bring this up. And I always like this show configuration. Hello? Did I change the mode? I think I changed the keyboard layout or something. That's fine. So here we can see I'm running version 18, which is kind of the bulk of the, as I mentioned when I started the labs and stuff, like this is the images that I have trial licenses for. So some of the newer things, you know, like the EVPN and segment routing stuff, it's not really there. I think it is, but there's some missing parts or newer things which you really need a newer version of Junos for. All right, but this is nice. This is kind of like just running an export on the MikroTik. You can see exactly. I prefer this over like this, even though some people read this better because this looks more like programming, obviously, because it's like XML and stuff. So if you like reading with brackets, then just do a show configuration. But if you're like me, you'll do a show configuration display set or pipe display set. And this makes more sense to my brain because I can see, okay, there's interfaces. This is how you bound stuff to the, this is the IP. These are the address families you're using. You know, this works better for me. I recall that now. Juniper has, yeah, Juniper was bought over by HPE. It's crazy big deal. Let's add a static route down to our customer quickly. So what I'll do is head into configuration mode. I'll do a set routing instance. I think I need to do the routing instance name first. So VRF underscore customer 1. Then we can do routing options static. Sorry if you guys, oh, you shouldn't hear that because I've disabled the desktop audio. That's good. So routing options static. I think I type route again. And then I can put in my customer route. So that was 192.168.10/24. And then I think I specify next hop. And that is going to be 172.16.0.2, I think. Cool. Do a little show compare. See what we've got here. That looks fine. Do the commit. Check. But that should just take it. That's not really anything special we did. And we can do a similar configuration on our opposite router quickly. Although I think I still need to also export the static routes into BGP, but we'll do that as well in a second. So we're gonna do configure set routing instance VRF customer 1 routing options static route, and then 192.168.20/24 with our next hop being 172.16.12. Commit. And if I do something like a run ping 172, no, run ping routing instance VRF customer 1, and we can ping, actually I think I can just do the ping, then the IP, then set the routing instance. So 192.168.20.1, and that pings. Okay, cool. So we can get to our customer stuff like that, but, and this is where I said we're gonna have to probably redistribute the, or export the static routes into BGP. But I just want to test and see what the outcome is if I just do a straight ping out quickly. So if I ping 192.168.20.1, it's already working. Maybe I already exported it. I don't recall that I did, but maybe I did. That's quite interesting. Just make sure I'm on the right equipment. Yes, I am. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I feel like Borat going whoa, 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 whoa. Because I was actually expecting that to just bomb, to be honest. So let's just quickly do a quick packet capture on GE000 on the provider edge 2 on this edge. I just want to see these packets coming in and what they're doing. So we've got some ICMP, we've got those ICMP replies. That is awesome. That is really nice. But the question is the routes. That's actually what I want to see. So if I go back to the custom edge, so here's the PE1. If I look at our routing table now, sorry, show routes, it does the same thing. So any of the remote peer IPs that we're learning, it's just adding this wacky long AS path, even though technically there's no AS path involved, since it is an IBGP connection and it's literally just route reflecting MPLS routes or VRF routes. And here you can see the setup is kind of the same. I already did the export display set, because here we've got, just like with the MikroTik, we've got a routing instance. Think of this just as the VRF name. Now we've set the type as VRF. We've added an interface to the VRF. We've set our route distinguisher. We've set our VRF target, which you can just think of the export and import routes. We're doing the VRF table label. Okay, that's probably why I'm getting all of the routes and information. That's pretty cool. Because I know with the BGP, I'm doing a export of send internal, but send internal is literally just protocol direct. So that's pretty cool. I think this is literally populating the whole table into... Let me quickly just remove this and see what the impact is. Configure. Fun little thing to just delete. So same thing. Let's just copy that, bring it into the other provider edge quickly. Pop it in there. So we can go root. Oh, I'm on the provider 3 router there now. That's not right. There we go. That's where I want to be. Commit. iOS is a bit easier in contrast with Junos, it seems. I think to an extent, yes, but I've definitely had some, I don't know. Yes and no. I mean, if you're in networking, you're obviously somewhere going to work with a Cisco or you're going to work with a Juniper. It just kind of happens. I think for most of the time, most people just run into Cisco a lot sooner because it's almost a de facto network vendor, or at least in my time when I started, you had to know Cisco. You joined an ISP, you worked in a call center, guess what? They're going to tell you to go for the CCNA. And it's just kind of been engraved into most network engineers, I think, brains that they need to do Cisco. So it could just be that everyone is so used to it that it feels easier because of that. But I do realize there's some stuff with Junos, like being able to roll back and see rollback configurations and who made changes and stuff like that, that I kind of appreciate. Even though I know that with the newer Cisco or the iOS builds, you can do many of the same things that you can on Juniper as well. Yeah, UI, I get it. I can agree with that as well. Maybe the UI for Cisco is a bit easier to understand. If I think about it, I think you're right. All right, let me quickly just have a look at the route table now. So run show route. Still does that. Still does that. And I'm pretty sure okay, so but now we've got timeouts with the ping, which makes kind of sense as well. I just want to see, can I ping across using the WAN IP? So ping, what was 172.16.1.1? No, that times out as well. No, so that that setting's obviously required. So I'm just going to pop it back in. PE2 paste. We could just do a set. This is okay, I get it. This is basically just the same config as on the MikroTik with the per VRF or per prefix, I think. So on PE1, set that, commit that, and quit that. And then we should see that our stuff is working again afterwards, I hope. No worries, thanks for joining the stream. I mean, I'm also probably going to hit the hay in like 10 minutes. I'll stream for like 10 more minutes. And then there's a good chance I'm also just going to, even though I say I'm going to hit the hay, I have off tomorrow because I'm going to catch a show somewhere with my wife. And as funny as it seems, I mean, most of you guys know I'm like also into gaming and stuff. So the PlayStation version for, well, not, I shouldn't say PlayStation, I should say the next generation version for Fallout 4 came out, I think today even. And I actually want to test that out as well. So there's a good chance I might like stay up like an hour later just to play a bit of that. Do I have that IP address right? Or what's wrong? Do I need to re-signal anything? Because now I've properly broken some stuff here. I think it might just be that the tunnels might need to be refreshed as well. This is why you shouldn't be making like changes like this on Juniper in general. So let me just jump onto the tunnels and just clear our LSP. And I also don't recommend just doing that willy-nilly, by the way. Yeah, I could just do a rollback as well. Although I think I've rolled back to what the previous state was. If we go into configuration, we can do like a rollback. I think it would be like rollback 2. Show, compare, nothing. So there's no change between this configuration and active version. But I really think the issue is that like the LSP has still got the old information in it. What is my personal recommendation for small business networking devices? So this is probably where I chill MikroTik again, because it's really good for small business. There's so much that you can do with it in a small business. I mean, I've used it in small business, so that's probably my recommendation. But you know, if you're looking at stuff like the Ubiquity stack as well, they've got a really nice like environment, like how all of their devices just integrate together with the controller. It's very intuitive, it's very nice and easy to use. So I could definitely think Ubiquity stuff as well. What else? Look, MikroTik's probably best if you're going to like, you know, if you're able to tinker and make the things work. You know, if you're gonna be there to configure the WireGuard tunnels between different sites if you have multiple sites and stuff like that. Whereas like Ubiquiti would have these auto configurators and stuff like that to just make things easier. But I think there's more that you can potentially achieve with the MikroTiks. Just wonder, is the ping working again yet? Or do I want to... 192.168.10.1. Can't imagine that I changed anything else. Let's just see, where's the PE2? Show display set. That's all I changed. So what I should do maybe is let's just clear the LSP just for my own sanity. So clear MPLS LSP name. What is this? PE2 to PE1. What did I make the name? Let's just see. My LSP is PE. It's not PE4. This is where you can see I was still stuck with the MikroTik solution in my head, because this is like PE1 and 2. Markets works tirelessly since the very installation. If not frequent power outage, it would. Yeah, like I'd probably look at some type of battery solution. UPS works great. You know, a lot of people get all kinds of stuff just to keep their devices up. Maybe like an inverter as well. Cool solutions that you can do with your power. And PE1 is clear. Well, let's just do a show config. I said, did I get the name right on here? I did. So clear MPLS LSP name, copy, paste. And if I go back here, it's still timing out. Is the route reflector receiving the routes? So if we do a routing route print, we should see the routes. And we're definitely getting the VPN v4 routes. The route target information looks very interesting. Very interesting. That is a pretty funny story. I'm really scared of stuff like PoE because I remember a few years ago we put some equipment in a data center, and it was completely fresh, like a greenfield data center is, right? It's completely new and fresh. There's nothing there. It's just a empty cabinet, and we requested some, let's call them cross connects from the data center. And in all other data centers that I've worked with before, the cross connects would just be dropped into the cabinet, and you do with them whatever you want. They'll put some labels on them to let you know what the cross connect is, and now it's your business where you want to patch those cables into. And we get in the cabinet and we install some equipment, and there's this one cable, and I'm sure this is the cross connect for the actual like breakout to get the internet stuff, right? And I pop the cable into our MikroTik, and I'm talking like some crap with my colleague that's working there with me. We're talking for a bit, and he jumps up and he shouts, and I also jump up, and what would you know, we plugged a live PoE cable into the socket, and we basically fried the port where we connected it onto that MikroTik. So that is where I've also now decided I'll never plug anything into anything that's unmarked again in my life. So interesting story, But just so that you got like, so people can see, even I make weird silly mistakes, like stuff like that happens. I actually still feel bad that I fried that port on that MikroTik just because I plugged some PoE that I shouldn't have plugged in. I mean, there's ways around it to obviously circumvent it and make it better and not just kill your port, but at that stage it was too late. It was too late for me. At least it wasn't a super expensive device. It was like I think it was a 16, it's a 1016 or something, like a small little router. Ah, that's awesome. I love stuff like that. Power is one of the most trickiest things. It is curious that I kind of broke our solution just by testing something out. But that is another Mies problem, because I am actually going to power off these nodes and I am going to end off the stream so we can have a quick just chill down session, like for 3 minutes or so. We can just chat and finish off the stream, and then I'll end it off here. I mean, I feel like there's more I wanted to get figured out, especially with the MikroTik lab, because it's actually annoying me. If it's a bug, I'm gonna be so annoyed actually, because I did so much troubleshooting and then it would be for no reason, because it's not even my issue. One wants to be Junos certified engineer. Base knowledge of BSD is highly appreciated. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm liking the Juniper certification so far, to be honest. I think there's a lot of cool things to learn. Things that I'd never learn with MikroTik, especially with like the segment routing and EVPN stuff. I wouldn't know about it if I just did MikroTik. But that's really more for bigger networks. That's not something that the everyday type of person will, be doing. Phases between buildings. Would you say triple PoE with radius is a primary method to authenticate customers, or have a go-to documentation source? So I think radius, I'm not sure if it's the go-to. I've seen some people just have like all of these static things configured as triple P accounts on a BNG type of device, but it makes sense doing it through radius. I mean, the problem is I've never like ran a triple PoE type of solution for customers with the networks I've supported, so for me it's purely speculation, to be honest. But if you look at I think the stub area 51 blog, Kevin has some pieces especially related to triple PoE configurations. That's something I might recommend checking out. Otherwise, I think Daryl Swear has also made a few documentations for those type of solutions, although he's just more for the data center. Yeah, no, for sure, everything has strengths and weaknesses. Everything. The one thing that I feel is a bit weird is, I don't know, I've shown this off on stream before, or hang on, what did I do now? The camera's gone off, so now you guys don't see me. Oh, I just changed to a different view thingy. But like this thick book, MPLS in the SDN era, it's such a good read, but this is gonna pop your brain, because it's popped my brain. I got like 4 chapters in, but this was before I did any of the Juniper certs, and I think I first want to at least get the JNCIP done, and then I'll tackle the book. Uh, yeah, I think Joseph was talking about triple PoE. Hmm. I mean, I think it's normal to use the HCP with triple PoE as well, just for like address assignment and stuff like that. But you know, I think it's for like the user accounts themselves and the billing. I think the billing is the big concern or the big issue usually that people have problems with. Like, how do you bill these customers? I think that's where the problem comes in. Yeah, and that's also true. It is very tricky to, you know, isolate customers in triple PoE. Hmm. I'm also surprisingly tired, so who knows? Maybe my Fallout session, instead of an hour, it's going to be like 15 minutes just to see what the game looks like. Dash dash, I'm used to single triple PoE account from home, at work, and vice versa. All right, I'm going to close off these tabs. I'm actually going to discard all that, turn off this Linux host, well, it's Ubuntu, power you off. And that will technically be it, guys. This is where I'll end off the stream. I think we've winded down now as well. So I'd like to thank you guys for also just sticking around. Was another fun session. Like I really enjoy just hanging out and doing these things. Um, like I think somebody mentioned at the start of the stream I talk too fast. And I think sometimes I do, but it's not intentionally, and it's also not to try and sound smart or anything like that. It's just, I think my brain's just wired to, do verbal diarrhea, so to speak. But yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys definitely in the next stream. Otherwise, you'll probably see a new video from me pretty soon. I do want to publish a video just talking about like the 2 Juniper certs that I got. So something basic. I want to make more MikroTik things. That's one thing maybe I'll just let you guys in on is I do want to recreate the MikroTik MTC&A and MTCRE videos. I'm just not 100% sure how I want to implement it yet. I have this idea like either create one mega course, like one big video with all of the information, or I might snip it out again to shorter, different pieces of content. Um, it's just how I want to record things, I guess. But yeah, and that's just a little heads up. That's where I'll then be ending off the stream. Again, thank you for watching and see you guys soon. Have a good evening or morning or day or whatever. See you guys.